A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Today, we have a very exciting session planned for you. We are going to be interacting with experts on the quantum entrepreneurship field, listen to their stories, listen to what inspires them, and hopefully that inspires you to take a step into quantum entrepreneurship yourself. First, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Fateme Mahdikhany. Fateme is a physicist interested in optoelectronics, optical design, device fabrication, and characterization. She's skilled in applying linear and nonlinear optical techniques to advancing the understanding of materials under diverse conditions. Welcome, Fateme.
Thank you. Hi. Hi, everyone.
Next, I would like to introduce to you Dr. Sristy Agrawal. Sristy co-founded Mesa Quantum, which is building chip-scale atomic clocks and quantum sensors that help determine exactly where they are on Earth. This provides location services in areas where GPS signals are weak or unreliable. The company has raised over $4 million in venture capital to date and received a grant from the US Space Force. Welcome, Sristy.
Nice to be here.
Okay, next, I would like to introduce the moderator for today's session, Wendy. Wendy is a leading expert in inclusive economic growth through innovation and entrepreneurship. Her work is recognized across industries and regions. She creates a vibrant startup ecosystem that grows city, state, and regional economies. At a national level, she also serves as on the Center for American Entrepreneurship Advisory Board and a member of the National Advisory Council for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And she helps develop strategies to strengthen America's role as a global leader in emerging technologies. Welcome, Wendy.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much. So here we are, June 25th, 2025. What a pleasure. And I really thank the Wiser team and all of you who've joined us. There are always places we could all be, and we've chosen to be together today. And I think that's important for learning, for inspiration, and because we're all in some phase of our professional lives. And so hearing the stories of others can give us some ideas and some pathways to follow. So such a joy to have a chance to be with you, to moderate, and to help pull through the stories of our other two panelists. So we will have a chance to hear the origin stories of these organizations and the decisions of our esteemed guest as they either built the company, joined the company, and all the lessons they've already learned and the things they are still curious about themselves. And then we'll do some Q&A. So get ready for that. I think let's just get started. I will start with a little bit more of an intro about me. I am from the Deep South. I live in Boulder, Colorado. So if you don't understand the accent, that's because it's very Southern. As a person who's lived around the world, it wasn't because a big company moved me. It wasn't because I was working at a university. I am a pure play entrepreneur, have always been an entrepreneur, both bootstrapped, and I know you know what that means, as well as venture backed. So both sides of that street are interesting to me. They're both very challenging, no matter what, no matter where the money comes from, unit economics or a venture, it's still hard. So let's just say that. And I had the good fortune, and this is the last piece about me, I had the good fortune 3 years ago to work at the federal level with Secretary of Commerce Dina Raimondo, where I got into the weeds of chips and science. While in the weeds of that legislation, I learned about the 10 technologies that the government wanted to invest in, quantum being one of the 10, and I learned about the program on the back end of the bill called Regional Tech Hub. As it turned out, I had run a tech hub in Ohio, so I knew just enough to be dangerous, but nothing really about advanced technology. So I had a lot to learn about science-based technologies. I know tons about technology in general, and actually exited a company which gives me the ability to work as a volunteer here in Colorado across many efforts. So it's been amazing to see this effort in Colorado, even more amazing to understand the opportunity we had with quantum that many people didn't even know about. Now, you guys did, right? Fateme and Sristy did, but I didn't, and nor did the people that were working on this application. And we had help from BCG, McKinsey, Walton Family Foundation, from the state to really dig in to create a narrative that would give us a right to win this Tech Hub. So as I'm moderating today, think of me first as an entrepreneur, both bootstrapped and venture-backed. Then think of me as a board member for Elevate Quantum, or half my time I spend on anything to do with Elevate Quantum. And then think of me as a person who, a professional, the birthday today, by the way, 71, a professional who wants to encourage more entrepreneurship in the area of quantum. This is what the US needs. That's what you and the audience can bring if you choose to come forward as an entrepreneur or to join a team of entrepreneurs. So anyway, that's all to me. So thank you very much. Over to you, Sristy.
Yeah, happy birthday, Wendy.
Yeah,
You're such
why not? Why not?
But yeah, I'll maybe start with my background a little bit and then share the problem we are solving at Mesa Quantum. So I grew up in India, did my undergrad there at ICER, then spent some time in Japan, spent some time in France working on different aspects of quantum. In Japan, I was working on quantum measurements. In France, I was working on quantum cryptography. And through these projects, I realized that I was very excited about this technology space. So came to the US to pursue my PhD. That's how I landed in Boulder, as you can say with my accent, very clearly Boulder accent. That did not land. But anyways, so during my PhD, I was focused in the quantum computing and networking side of things. But as I was going through the program, I realized that quantum sensing, which JILA and NIST are a hub for, so 26% of all global research comes from this one institution, but it wasn't being highlighted as much. Quantum computing just kind of, which is an incredible technology, very excited about where it takes us, but it was just kind of taking all the limelight, while quantum sensing technologies, like its potential was very misunderstood. That was about 2.5 years ago. And so went through a lot of university programming to understand the value proposition of the technology I wanted to commercialize and build the conviction, ended up building a strong team around the technology. And now we are a team of 15 of us, 2.5 years later, with our own lab in Boulder, Colorado. But let me talk about the problem we are solving. Right. So we have participants from all across the world in this call. And the reason we could join in at the same time was because we had a sense of what time the call was at. And that was because all our clocks, even across different time zones, were synchronized. And even if it was off sync by a few milliseconds, we wouldn't notice. But when our electronics are talking to each other, or our computers are talking to cell phone towers or internet, it needs to be synchronized to microseconds, sometimes nanosecond level accuracy. And the way that happens is through GPS. GPS helps with positioning, but a big part of what it does is time synchronization across our digital infrastructure. But we've realized that even though the technology is great, it is very easy to jam and spoof it. And so we're looking for alternatives. And that's where Mesa Quantum comes in, where we're really miniaturizing atomic clocks so much that you can directly embed them into your hardware without having to rely on an external signal, which is easy to jam and spoof. So creating national resilience is our goal.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. Okay, Fateme, tell us.
Hi, happy birthday.
Yeah, thanks.
My name is Fateme. I actually grew up in Iran. I got my bachelor in Iran too. And then I moved to US, Arizona, beautiful, very warm place, love it. And I got my PhD there in fundamental physics. I was working with quantum emitters in 2D. I always loved phase transition, and I was very focused on that area, superfluidity, superconductivity. It's a very niche area in condensed matter. And I went for my postdoc to Chicago. And when I was there, I figured out that I really like to do something more meaningful. Science is amazing, but sometimes it's hard to wait 50 years to see what's happening with what you're doing. And that's when I decided to join or go towards industry. But I didn't want to do some kind of like repeating work and not having any effect in the work that we are creating in the future. So I decided to join a startup. And I actually honestly never liked quantum before I joined Icarus I was always like, oh, they did all the research on quantum computing. There's not much left. Now it's an engineering problem. But when I was talking with Icarus Quantum, we are actually working on this niche area, quantum networking, that is not as much as quantum computers well studied or well worked on. So it was this new opportunity to actually create it. We are working on making the hardware. That's my favorite part in condensed matter. And the idea is that, okay, we have these quantum computers and all of these engineers, scientists are working to grow them. And we know that there is noise problem and we cannot fix it, or we need few years to fix it, but we don't have that time. Like we need it now to fix many of our problems. Imagine if I can find a solution for cancer tomorrow, and instead of 10 years from now, that's important. Like time really matters here. And I think what we are doing in Icarus Quantum is actually building very, very tiny solution, like photonics links to connect these quantum computers. Now you don't need to deal with all of those noise problem and making these processors bigger. You can just connect them together and bring the quantum era sooner to human, to have access to it and solve the problems. And that was what got my attention. And that was the reason I decided to join Icarus. I was employee number 1, and now we are building it together. That's an amazing feeling, an exciting journey.
That's awesome. Awesome. I've been following your story, just like Sristy's story, as part of Elevate Quantum's consortium, right? Our ecosystem. And I applaud you both for doing the work of builders. That is what we need. And all of this is about iterating, as you know. It's never done. It's always a process. And there's nothing more important than collaboration in building a company from scratch. So we'll kind of dig into that a little bit later. So now for the audience to understand, we're going to go into a deeper dive and really understand more about the entrepreneurial journeys that these two women have decided to take. So they had both had lots of options. You heard their backgrounds. They're very, very smart, very accomplished. They have all the educational requirements anyone could want. And so they could have stayed doing research and could have done research for a long, long time. Very important research, potentially, in many different areas of quantum, not just quantum computing, as we heard. But at the end of the day, they made other choices. So we want to help you as an audience understand what triggered their choices and what experiences they've had as they made these choices. So Sristy, let's start with you because you are a founder. I want to just start with an easy question. How does it feel to be a founder? And what made you feel and think you would be good at this? Starting a company from scratch, finding product market fit, hiring a team, raising money. Those are all the things that founders, CEOs have to do. Give us a little perspective on that.
Yeah, I honestly did not know I would be good at it or not, but I knew I wanted to do it. I knew there was a huge problem which I had identified. No one else was looking at it or trying to solve it. And I felt like it would have so much impact. And that's where I wanted to see myself. And that's what I wanted to see myself doing. And I knew early on that I didn't have all the answers. There were so many things that I did not know. And so that's, I think, a big superpower sometimes where you know what you don't know. And so you try to find people who have those answers, which means looking for a co-founder who really complements you, or bringing in team members who have the skill sets that you don't, and creating a team where you can look at them and feel like they're way smarter than you. So I think that really helps in the journey without knowing much to start with. And then you learn together, you grow, you come across problems, you solve it, but just being very focused on what problem you're solving and where you want to take it, I think is the key.
Yeah, that's well said. Just to reinforce that, I mean, knowing if you're going to try to build something from scratch, right? Knowing your superpower, meaning be very self-aware, is essential to success. And realizing that rarely these organizations, especially quantum hardware, this is a real journey. that requires real focus, lots of talent, and lots of money, right? So so the patience required, the focus required, and self-knowledge required is absolutely top of the heap, right? And then there's all the science that you know and all the critical analytical abilities that you carry. But at the end of the day, if you don't have that other stuff, you probably will not find success, right? So I appreciate the trigger to superpowers because I want our audience to reflect on that. Because if you're in an academic environment, your superpowers show up in a different way, right? And then you get outside of that environment, and that's a commercial environment, that's an industry environment. The pressures are different, and the resilience of you as a human has to go up, and you have lots of learnings to, as you go along. So I appreciate that. Let me go back just a bit to Fateme, just a second. Let's talk about, you have a small team, first employee. What gave you the confidence to leave the life you were leading, right? To join a not very well funded yet company? Because that's a risky endeavor, right? So talk us through, the audience through your decision process, your rubric, if you will, on taking that leap to be employee number one.
I remember when I got the job offer, I called my advisor, my PhD advisor, and was like, the founder himself is not part of the company yet. He's still working through something else. I think he was a postdoc back then when we were talking. And the technology is this. Do you think I should do that? Like, this is my life. I'm letting everything. I need to say no to academia. I won't be a professor if I do this. What should I do? And he told me something that I really liked. He was like, technology is great. Look at it this way. You are going to be the one who built it. Don't question that. Just look at it this way, that I'm the builder, I can do it, and then go to it. And I really liked it. And it stayed with me that I'm the one who's building this, and it's going to be successful because I believe in myself. And that's what got me into this. I believed in what he was doing, our founder. The technology is amazing. I think that's what I could kind of evaluate based on the background that I had. And that was a big part. And then after that, it was believing in myself. And then the most important part for me was the culture of the company. We are a small team. We are interacting with each other every day. We need to come up with a solution, constantly working with each other. Like, I think I'm working with Pulot about 12 hours a day. And the fact that the culture was amazing. Like, we have the culture that embrace you as a human and in the same time as a scientist and let you grow. So all of them together, I think it was the reason that I decided to, like, okay, academia, I can say no to academia and start something else from scratch.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think a theme there is really understanding what the culture is and how you, if you're joining a startup, how you fit into the culture, or if you're a founder, CEO, how do you create culture? And the theme around culture that I love is professional development. Like, if you're not providing your employees and yourselves a chance to grow, develop, then what are you offering? Right? Not much, right? I mean, so I do think the whole notion of developing your own human self and your professional self together at the same time makes for a great company. And you hear these stories all the time, right? About the culture of X drove the growth and ultimately they went IPO. I don't want to go that far because I think that's possible. These exits are possible, but it's along the way where humans, employees, need to feel they're engaged to be their best selves, to be smarter than they were, more evolved than they were, more sensitive than they were, more contributing than they were before they joined you, right? And I think that, like, being able to be part of that is something very special. And I appreciate those comments a lot. So, Sristy, let's go to you. So the whole thing of attracting a team to deliver a product that drives revenue. I mean, that is what startups are all about, right? Now, we can talk about all the ways to get revenue. We want to sell directly over time as soon as the product is ready to be sold, value to be delivered. But talk to me a bit about that cycle for you, because attracting the team, making sure you're building the right thing, iterating, that's hard. It's easy to read a blog post about it and hear some smarty pants talk about it like, oh, no problem, here are the 3 phases. But it's a lot different than that real time, isn't it? So talk to our audience today about your journey in that and building this product, attracting a team, just that phase, because that's so important.
Yeah, no, I think that was one of the most challenging things for me to do in this journey. Also because I was still in my PhD program when I hired almost half the team. And so, but I needed folks with a lot of experience who had been in the industry, who had productized, and who were way, way more senior in terms of experience than I was. And so to be able to convince those very, very smart folks to join a team which was being led by someone who's still in a PhD program was definitely a challenge. But I think what did help quite a bit was having a very clear vision of what we are going to build and why we will be successful. And hiring is kind of a two-way street where you are evaluating a team member, but they're also evaluating you.
Absolutely. No
And
question.
yeah, and sometimes I feel it's a bigger risk on them because you can have a different employee, but for them, that is their life, right? So they're giving very, very precious years of your life, of their lives to you, contributing to the vision. So for them, I think the biggest secret there is have something that they can buy in and make their own. And then everything else becomes much easier. And so, as an example, when I tried to hire my co founder, he was at Harvard Business School with 2 daughters, the youngest one, 8 month old. And I had to convince him and his wife that he should not sit for placement and to join the startup, which had no funding raised, had no grants applied. And I think the vision really helps, like just being very authentic, being very open about the risks and the upside, and then just the vision of the company and the mission to do something bigger than yourself. And everyone wants to contribute and everyone wants to really, as Fateme said, wants to do something bigger than themselves. So I think that's been the key.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because that describes potential of people, right? And of an organization. If they don't, they have to have that, they don't have to, but if things work, they need to see potential for themselves, their families, and of course that potential will manifest through the company they're part of. And that's why the vision part is so essential. So I want to double click though on the co-founder part of this deeper dive for now. The reason for that is what I've experienced, and I've had to come up to speed very fast in quantum. You guys both know that. I'm not a quantum scientist, but I am an entrepreneur. So I'm applying my stories as a technology entrepreneur to this category. And I know it's different, right? But one of the things that concerns me, not worries me, but concerns me, at least based on my observations so far, is when the founder is the technical person, is the PhD, is the Jilla scientist, that how can that human really get paired up with the right business co-founder? Because if we don't have that commercial, and like Fateme, you guys have Brad as your chief business officer. I've met him, he's awesome. But that's to attract him took some work. But if I just go to Sristy, how did you partner up? What were you looking for? And give us, the audience mainly, give the audience some ideas of how important a co-founder is, especially if you're the technical one, the expert, the researcher, you know the problem inside and out from a scientific standpoint. How do you corral this human from Harvard with little babies to come and work for you and take that risk?
Yeah, no, I think that is a very, very relevant question, especially in quantum, because we are so much in love with our technologies that we end up, our focus becomes building this cool tech, which is incredible, but we often lose sight of what the market exactly needs. Does it need the technology I'm building? Maybe it needs far less, or maybe it needs a lot more. So I really appreciate the question. For me, the journey was slightly more roundabout, because once I realized I wanted to do this, the first thing I understood was I did not know how to. And I had no idea how to talk to a venture capitalist, how to raise funding, but I wanted to get that exposure. I knew that I wanted to learn and kind of step into that shoes. So the first thing I did was a venture fellowship. So a lot of
Ah,
venture funds run student fellowship programs where
mhm.
student fellows can join and see them evaluate other companies, help with due diligence, help them source other companies. And this venture fellowship out of Boston was specifically designed for student founders.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
And it had founders from all across the country. And that gave me a very, very good community to start building with, where we would have, like, as a part of the venture fellowship, we would have term sheet negotiation sessions where we would pretend to be VCs, or we would pretend to be founders and negotiate on a term sheet, or pitch session. So that was a like very quick crash course on the business side of things. At the same time, if you are building in US, a resource that one should definitely know of is National Science Foundation programming. They exist in every single university, in the university level, then regional level and national level, where they make you go through customer discovery programs, where you're talking to customers and you're working on business model canvas. So really helping you understand how to evaluate market needs, how to talk to a customer and not sell to them, but just understand their pain points. So a lot of those things were extremely beneficial just on my end. But even with that, uh, I was still coming from an academic mindset, and I knew that. And anyone who's evaluating me as a founder also is kind of seeing it through that lens, where they're seeing a PhD and they see that risk of someone maybe, where that business risk is. And so I was very clear I needed a business co-founder. But then I made a wish list of everything the co-founder should be, which I was not. For example, I did not have a military background. I do not understand still half the acronyms. So a military background would be great. Air Force is more relevant, so that would be even better, but I'm more broad, a military background. Of course, an MBA, and MBA from a top school is amazing. But at the end, having a PhD would be kind of needed. That's at least where I was coming from, because we were in such early stages. And I was worried that bringing in a business person who had not had a technical background, they may not understand a lot of difficulties. They may find it frustrating if there are major technical challenges. And so I spent about 6 to 8 months just talking to people, sharing this profile with them, and saying that I want someone like this, but I don't know if they exist. And through my venture fellowship, I became friends with a guy who knew my co-founder. And my co-founder had exactly that background. He was an Air Force officer, a director of ammunitions, commercialized dual use technology before, had his PhD in nanoengineering and material science, and was at Harvard finishing his MBA. So I felt like just kind of taking that step back and having that clarity on what I wanted was extremely helpful there. And he took on the role of a CTO because he really enjoyed technology. He was looking to get hands-on. And for me, I realized that like strategy and big vision was my area. So it doesn't even mean that just because you are in the technical space that you end up remaining in the technical space when you're building a company. But what is important is knowing what strengths you have and what are the gaps which you need to fill, and then doing that work more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, excellent, excellent. What I hear here and want to reinforce is whatever we all have gaps. And so our job as entrepreneurs and as members of a startup are to recognize those gaps and then go about the business of filling them. And that opportunity with the Venture Fellowship was perfect because you got a foundation that allowed you to then be more discerning about the pursuit of a co-founder.
Yep.
And when and again, not to scare anyone off here, but to really build out a quantum company takes a lot of capital. So if you have any gap around understanding business, customer development, or fundraising, because you're typically going to do it from venture. And I know you can get grants and lots of revenue can come from that. I'm not dismissing that opportunity, but it's not what it used to be, as we all know. And so we have to accept that we will have to have streams of revenue, multiple streams of revenue, right? And to do that, we'll have to understand all the capital aggregators, like including customers being our number one opportunity to raise money because we are delivering value to them. So when I was a young entrepreneur, I always looked at that first. And a little bit of that was I didn't understand venture, right? I did not have exposure to that. So I knew, though, what we were building in my company, and I knew our customers very well, and they were big tech companies. And so I knew if we could just keep that motion going, we would have some revenue. And then if we could get traction, then we could get venture capital or other kinds of capital, right? So I do appreciate, though, again, the self-awareness aspect that drove you to look for your co-founder, and that because he was what you weren't, which is not to say you couldn't develop yourself to be that. It is to say time is no one's friend in a startup. Everyone has hair on fire because every minute has to be invested the most effective way you can. And so you don't have time to learn all this, right? You just have to find people that know some of it and that can live in the culture that you are creating. And so I love that storyline, that deeper dive into this conversation, I hope will inspire, inform, and kind of trigger our audience to think more deliberately about this particular path that could be of interest to them. Okay, so Fateme, let's go back to you. I want to talk about customer development. You guys are very early. You don't have a product in market yet, right?
Yeah.
And you're on the networking side, and I think because of this big kahuna called the quantum computer that everyone seems to be obsessed on, even though in Colorado we have strong sensing capability. And now I'm learning more and more about networking because of relationships I have in Chattanooga, right? With they have a whole ecosystem around networking with Oak Ridge. So it's very interesting. What are you guys doing as a small team now? I know you're building your lab. I know that's a lot of work. I don't want to dismiss that work. But what are you and Pulad and Brad doing to kind of, do the canvas around your type of customer? Tell the audience what that looks like in terms of your involvement, because you're an engineer, and Brad's involvement because he's the chief business officer, and Pulad. Give us a practical sense of customer development from where you sit right now.
I think I will 100% agree with Sristy about customer discovery. It's like, you know what you're doing in a lab. We all go to the lab, do this science from a fundamental point of view, work on it. And many of us never look at what can we do with this, or better word, what people need out there. And I think that's what I've been kind of observing. When company was growing, and last year, we were constantly doing customer discovery. We actually started as a quantum networking company, long distance quantum networking. And through our customer discovery, I think about 3-4 months ago, we started to focus on short-range quantum networking between quantum computers. So you need to be flexible and figure out what market wants and then shape what you have based on that. And then when you figure that out, we are going to focus on that. Everything now is just in line with your final goal. For us, quantum interconnect short range. And that's what we have been doing. So we've been talking with lots of quantum computer companies. I would say I will participate a lot on those talks because you want to figure out, you're building this hardware and you really care about what your customer wants. You need to customize it. We're a small company, customization matters a lot. And then you need to figure out, get the feedback. And those feedbacks, I would say, is some of the most important thing you get in a startup to build the product that is really useful down the road. You don't want to make it there in 5 years and no one wants what you have. So you need to have this back and forth between you and companies, and it's not going to happen or to work unless you are in constant communication. I would say that's the biggest part, how you reach out to all of these places, all of these companies, and start to build this early relationship with them and grow through those relationships. For me, it's the scientific part. I think we had Brad on the more business side. And one thing that I would say, having all of these different specialties brought is the momentum. And I think that's the biggest part. I'm personally not used to having everything fast, moving fast, and trying to figure it out really fast. And then we have the business side that's just like, oh, we are going to build this like tomorrow. And we are doing it. And I think that's one of the biggest parts, like these fast communication, having the momentum, and moving fast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because momentum is what it's all about in a startup, right? It's what it's all about. Like you've got as a CEO, and Sristy, I'm sure that you demonstrate this on a regular basis, you've got to have milestones, not just for your product. Of course, you have to have it for your product, and these are complex products to build, right? And you have to have expensive labs to build them in and to iterate. So that's for sure. The product milestones are non-trivial. The other milestone, though, that will drive momentum is press, right? Press drives momentum. That press needs to be, so that's marketing, a sliver of marketing is press. And I think early stage companies need some of that. It just needs to be very authentic, right? It needs to be authentic. So it could be that the press is recognizing the founding team, referencing a founder based on a category. In our case, Sristy, it could be atomic clocks on chips, right? Like those are opportunities, but those are expensive sometimes to get because that means you need someone to go deliver that to the media. So you don't always get that to create those opportunities, but that you can build some momentum that way, right? But you need long tail momentum. The biggest concern I have is the spike of momentum and then it flatlines. And then 6 months down the road, you get another. So you, as a founder and as a founding team member, we need to always think about the long tail of momentum around product, right? Very important around, I would say, engagement in any kind of activity to support the industry. And I know you both do that, and that's very important for the ecosystem you're in, both in our state and around, to see that you are doing your part to drive momentum for others in the ecosystem. And those others could be researchers. Because our job is to build everyone up so we can actually achieve the potential of our ecosystem, but we can't do it just for ourselves. We have to be seen as doing that for the community, and I know both of your organizations do that. The long tail of momentum is very important. Then down further, when you land a customer, a commercial customer, or a new grant. Again, I don't want to dismiss that because you still have those opportunities, and we need to be looking for all the revenue we can find, right? And by the way, non-dilutive revenue is pretty good, right? We like that. A grant, no, we don't have to dilute ourselves to get that. So, but I do love this comment about momentum. And I do think if you're in an office space, there should be a wall of milestones around momentum, that are around product, that are around market mapping, customer, all those things, so you can kind of actually insert what I call strike points. That's not a military statement by me, but that's just examples of how we're going to bring our brand and our product up to be seen and viewed, to get just a little bit of momentum. Because if it's too much of a hill of a spike, it's a long way down and it goes crash, and you have to really build up again. So I'm really glad you mentioned the momentum thing, because it's really important to a startup. So I'm mindful of time. It's 9:16, and we want to have plenty of time for the audience to ask the two of you questions, and I'm sure they have many that they're prepared to ask. So I'm going to give you guys one last question, an easy one and a quick one. What are you most excited about right now in the spirit of where your company is, its life cycle? And what are you most concerned about? So two things, excited and concerned. And concerned doesn't mean negative, that just means being practical. So let's go to you, Sristy, and answer that quickly, and then we'll go to audience questions.
Yeah, I would say the government in both cases.
Oh,
For
good.
example,
That's a good one.
with like what's happening with geopolitics, I feel like our technology just becomes extremely crucial to get deployed. But at the
Agreed.
same time, grant cycles have become a lot more unpredictable. There's like just the lack of understanding of how do you engage with government to get to a meaningful outcome. So kind of seeing a lot of opportunity, and at the same time kind of feeling that risk and uncertainty around, like I want to make sure we are able to capitalize on it. And so I think, yeah, that's the risk and excitement part.
Cool. That's awesome. Great response. Thank you. Fateme, what about you? What you're excited about, what you're concerned about?
I think I'm excited and concerned about 2030. If you look at all of these quantum computers map, they're reaching to the point that they cannot scale anymore. And then we need to be ready to offer the scalability to them. So
Yeah.
it's exciting, but it scares me that like the time is going so fast, and everything needs to be there. So that
Yeah.
part is kind of scaring me sometimes. It's like, look, I was like, wow, are we going to be there? And you need to be like, yes, we will be there. So that's exciting and the scary part.
Yeah, I get that. Both of you, great answers and great fodder for the audience. Okay, wiser team, let's hear some questions. I bet we have a few.
We do. I will start posting them in the message channel for you guys. So Justin from James in New York City, I've just posted that. Can you see that?
Okay, Sristy, this looks like one for you. If I'm going to direct, because I know we don't have a lot of time. Do you want to just read that quickly and help James out from New York City?
Yeah. So why are venture capitalists interested in investing in quantum computing, given the long-term, like long investment, return on investments and uncertainty with technology? I'm kind of paraphrasing it real quick, because it has a very, very big potential once it becomes successful, right? So every venture capitalist, when they invest, they know 9 out of their 10 investments will fail, but that one successful investment will return their fund. And quantum computing has that potential where it is very risky. So it may be one of the 9s, but if it is not, then the fund, like those investors don't need to raise a fund ever again. It just gives them all the return they want. I think that's the psychology with it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Okay, here's another question to you, Fateme, from Artem in the US.
Let me see. What was the most unexpected challenge you faced in launching a quantum startup, and how did you overcome it? I think for me, the biggest challenge was when we figured out that we were working on quantum networking, and we were all in, we planned, we have a roadmap. Based on that, it was a 10 years roadmap. And then through our customer discovery, we figured out, oh, it's not going to work like that. It's going to be too late for a startup to stay on that one and wants to raise capital based on a 10 years plan. And then changing it and very fast, changing all of our roadmap and kind of planning all of our strategy based on that, redoing all of our strategy based on that was the big part for me. I think Wendy is frozen, so you go ahead. Yeah.
So yes, we did use SBI STTR programs quite a bit. We got about $2 million of SBIR last year, but then we also leveraged a lot of state funding. So we got over 600K from the state of Colorado. We are getting a lot of money now from the state of New Mexico. So definitely having a very, very strong non-dilutive strategy. This year, I think we've applied for like 8 grants already, with like half of them being phase 2, which is a much more intensive grant to apply. So very, very focused on that. I think that's like having that access to non-dilutive funding, especially when you're building in the US, is one of your superpowers and kind of gives you a very unfair advantage. So if you are in that space, I would definitely say apply for as many non-dilutive grants as possible.
Thank you. Since Wendy has dropped off, I'll send a few more. So we have one from Sujal in India. What are the professional job positions after doing a PhD in quantum sensing? So what kind of careers could they aspire to?
So first is definitely a technical career where a lot of our scientists have degrees in quantum sensing, different areas of quantum sensing. And within that, there can be different roles, right? You are focused on the electrical engineering part of it. You're focused on the building it, productization. Eventually, you can become a project manager. You can kind of grow into leadership positions from that by enhancing your soft skills. So that's one area that I'm most aware of. Other than that, I feel like once you've gone through a PhD program and you know how to think, you can do so much more. You kind of have you know how to think about a problem. So I think policy making is a great area that folks in quantum sensing need to go to. I think venture capital, as companies do diligence on these deep tech companies, I feel PhDs with this kind of degrees would be amazing assets. And yeah, I think you could also be a startup founder like I am and be a CEO of a company. Yeah, Fateme, can you think of anything else that I may be missing?
I will add something to that. I mean, many of us don't have that specific background about quantum. Your skill set is still useful and you can learn through your journey of finding a job and like going through the job market, what quantum environment needs, and learn and build for that specific need. So don't be scared if you don't have it. If you are excited and you're interested, it's a huge environment right now with lots of opportunity and you can grow into it.
Thank you. And then there was one more that just came in from Artur in Brazil. So what are your perspectives on open sourcing quantum solutions to address real world problems collaboratively without relying on the commoditization and privatization of technologies?
I can share my thoughts there. I feel like in the quantum computing space, there's definitely a lot of scope there. I feel like in quantum sensing with open sources, yet I've not seen too much. One thing I do feel as a community, which is kind of a bit idealistic, but if there was a way for the community to get together and talk about like things that don't work, like just challenges and kind of being open about it, I feel like that would really accelerate the overall development, because we end up trying the same things, failing quite a bit, spending a lot of resources on it. But I think that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question very well.
And Fateme, what do you think?
I think one big problem with that for quantum computing and anything quantum hardware will be the asset that you need to build. So you either need to tap into the government resources or private resources. But when it comes to the use case, I think how you are using it for all of these dual cases are still beneficial for what we need to grow as a society in general. So I wouldn't be super concerned about that. I think all we need is that momentum and doing it faster, and then we will find our way through that.
Mac from Canada, is quantum entrepreneurship a future compared to AI entrepreneurship?
In just different ways. I think AI definitely has a lot of potential, and we will see it become a part of our lives and innovation happen there. Just like with softwares, we still like it's an ever-growing ecosystem. But I do feel like quantum will kind of get to that. Like right now it's an AI boom and AI moment. Quantum is soon going to have its moment. So we see quantum entrepreneurs become more and more prevalent. It will really explode in the next couple of years for sure.
Thank you. And I think Wendy is back with us. Wendy?
Yeah, so can you hear me?
We
you
can,
hear me?
yeah.
Okay, awesome. So sorry. So the questions, I was able to hear the questions, and thank you guys for leaning in and answering them. I feel like the range of the questions was perfect, which takes me back to the goal of our session. And what I wanted us to be able to create for you as an audience of professionals that have deep science backgrounds and interest potentially in being entrepreneurs or joining a startup team, especially one doing the important work of quantum, is to trigger your curiosity and to quell what I would say natural concerns that they're there and they should be there, but when you hear other entrepreneurs like you did today talk candidly, clearly about what they did, why they did it, how they're proceeding, even though the future can be and always is uncertain. So please remember, as an entrepreneur, there is no sure bet here. And if there is this thing called failure, that is just a chance to learn. That's what it is.
Oh, I think we have lost Wendy again, but she makes a really good point on failure, doesn't she?
Yeah. No, and this journey is really all about that. Like every single day as a founder, you go through the highest highs where you feel like just I have arrived. And at the same time, why the hell am I doing it? Who convinced me to do it? And that's also the beauty of this journey.
Exactly. Well, if you haven't tried, you've already failed, right?
It's about
and
the
you
journey.
don't want to live with regrets, right?
Exactly. So it's a shame we lost Wendy at the end there, but that brings us to the end of the session. And it was great. I really enjoyed this. I think everybody online did as well, from the amount of questions we've gotten, and just on Discord, if you could see it, everyone is really engaged. But it was an incredible session, and it was really great to hear your journeys. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Thank you.